Hello, everybody. My name is Eric D. Johnson, also known as BrightShine. I live here in the city of Memphis, the state of Tennessee, in the county of Shelby. And today's date is early Sunday morning, August the 10th, of 2014. And the time is 3:46 a.m. And our date, today's video or yesterday's date, which will be Saturday, August the 9th of 2014. I want to first say thank you to all my fans, my support, for your continued encouragement and support. And I want to inform all my fans, my supporters, that as I mentioned last week, this is, the semester has ended. And as you know, I'm a student at Monroe College. I'm studying online. I'm pursuing my associate's degree in business administration with a concentration in marketing. And as I said, the semester has ended, and my final grade was a B. And so I'll be in the process of moving to the next semester, which will be the fall semester, which will start, if I'm not mistaken, in September. Yeah, September. And so I don't know what my class. I'll be studying my integrated business application. I had to finish that class, so I had enough time to familiarize myself with Microsoft Word, Access, PowerPoint, and Excel. So I should do a whole lot better with my IT class this semester. And I'm still employed at Ameriprise right here in the city of Memphis, in the state of Tennessee, which is in the county of Shelby, right there at the corner of Vans Avenue and Walnut Street. And my schedule changed. I no longer be working at 3:30 a.m. to 12:30 p.m. now. I've been going back to a department that I was working in 2013. I've been going back to building loads and things this nature from 7 a.m. in the morning till maybe 4 hours, somewhere like 4 or 5 p.m. and maybe 6. Sometimes you work late, maybe 7 p.m. But my schedule changed, so I'll be going in at 7 a.m. for now. But I want to start talking about some very interesting things that have been taking place. President Obama, as you know, President of the United States of America, had a summit this past week. The USA and Africa summit, which was needed in a 3-day summit, and some things that the President of the United States committed to. And also a good thing about this summit is that it's just one the President of the United States, but the United States Congress also participated in this summit. And this is a very significant legislation that has been, because it becomes law. And billions of dollars being committed to the African renewable energy, which is very important. You know, when you want to have business, you gotta have energy. And one of the main things, but when you talk about energy, they made it very clear that they were thinking about the environment and that it's renewable energy. And so this is very important because of innovation, inventions, technology, advances in technology, and and this will be a very big step in the progress of relations between the United States of America and the nations of the African continent. And also, this is what I was saying in the past about recruitment of these militant groups like Boko Haram, Al Qaeda, El Shabaab. Now, as you know, recently being reported in the news, not only do we have a conflict between the Israelis and the Palestinians, because you know that's the Jews, the Israelis being a Jewish nation, and the Palestinians being a predominantly Muslim country. And when you have a war, this is when Muslims from other countries will get involved. They'll see the Palestinians in a fight, in a military war conflict with the Israelis, and then Muslims from other countries will get involved. Now, that don't mean that Jews who are living outside of Israel won't help Israel, because that's what ends up happening. The Jews in other countries help Israel. And so that's what recruitment can be a tool for recruitment. Is some type of Israeli, Muslim, Israeli, the Jews and the Muslims get into a fight. And then you have this situation in Syria. Then you have this situation in Iraq. Then you have another situation in the Afghanistan-Pakistan area where there's a war, where U.S. military is in a conflict with the Taliban. And this is the reason why the USA and Africa Summit was very important, to stop people from listening to the Taliban, from listening to these clerics. You understand? The El Shabaab, Boko Haram, in Iran or in Iraq. They got this group now, this Sunni group, the ISIS group, the Islamic State of, what they call it, but that what the ISIS stand for, the Islamic State of Iran, Iraq, Syria, something like that. And it's some type of Sunni group. Now you know that the Shiites are over there. And they had their, instead of Mecca being their religious site, they had their religious site in Iraq. So, this summit can be it can deal with recruitment. Excuse me. And the things that President Obama and the leaders of the African nations agreed upon, excuse me, are the issues that these militant groups try to go amongst the people and recruit. Issues about sanitation. That's a very important issue for the men, the women, especially the children. energy, education, healthcare, like the situation with Ebola, the African governments, they dealt with it, they dealing with it, they have dealt with it, and they dealing with it in a very uh, professional and modern way. And the people did not revolt against the government response because that was an international response because of people, moving around, things of that nature. But you still have to look at how the African governments, each government themselves, address this issue. And that is something that the militants are trying to use to recruit is the Ebola virus and other, the HIV/AIDS virus. They're trying to use it as a way to recruit. And the international community around the world responded because these militants, sometimes they use religion, and then religion goes across borders. And then you have people like, for instance, Jihad Joe, which are these American citizens who leave America, and then they go to other countries, claiming that they're some kind of Muslim, and they end up in Syria and Iraq, they end up in Palestine, and they end up in Africa. They be over in Pakistan and Afghanistan, understand? And you already had this situation with the Israelis with their dual citizenship around the world. You have all these Jews who leave other countries, who live in other countries, but they have this dual citizenship with the Israeli government. And see, there's a reason why this summit is so important, and to address this issue about these militant groups and their recruitment. And I want to just say thank you. We're glad that the United States government, led by President Obama, and the United States Congress also, in their support of this summit, this United States of America and this African summit. Excuse me. Excuse me. And the future of America and all these African nations will get better because of this summit. Excuse me. And it'll lead to better relations. So we want to say thank you that this summit was done. Excuse me. I feel like I'm a little congested, but I'm not gonna spend all my time talking, but I want to just talk about that because it's very important. And the reason why it's so important, because you got to deal with these militants. And in the past, the issue that these militants used to recruit had to be addressed. See, it's not always about deploying American troops or United Nations peacekeepers, but it's the issue is the United States government and other nations who are not engaged with these African nations, and these African nations not engaged with the United States of America and other nations, except in one way, except in a post-colonial method. See, most of the countries in Africa were colonized by American and European nations. And that's how these nations have been dealt with in the past and in the present. But today, President Obama and the United States Congress, they made a change in the way that our nation, that the United States of America deals with nations of Africa, all the African nations. And that was a positive change. And it's going to also bring about a change in the recruitment of these militant groups like El Shabaab and Boko Haram and Al Qaeda. Because when you speak about Al Qaeda, you recall that one of the things that they used to recruit was this. They said that the U.S. troops were deployed to the Holy Land in Saudi Arabia. And that was one of the things that they didn't like. See, they didn't like that U.S. troops, military forces, were deployed to Saudi Arabia. That's the Holy Land, to the Sunnis. And that caused them. That's the reason why 9/11, and then there was an incident before 9/11. They tried to blow up the World Trade Center before 9/11. And then they came back. This time they hijacked the airplane. They hijacked the airplanes and hit the World Trade Center and the Pentagon. But see, it's the recruitment. See, there were people who were Americans who were supporting Al Qaeda. And that's what the United States government, the United States Congress had to continue to make sure that these ideologies. See, in Africa, you got El Shabaab, you got a Boko Haram. See, the U.S. and Africa Summit was a good thing. And that was one of the good things about it, is when you talk about renewable energy, when you talk about healthcare, you talk about education, when you talk about doing something about corrupt government politicians, government officials and politicians. When you talk about the U.S. government, instead of deploying forces, is going to help train the African forces. That way they can deal with these issues themselves. And that was another good thing about this summit. Is that the United States government did say we're going to deploy and start building bases all over Africa. We're going to help train, train and provide support. But it's for them to do it, for the African nation to do it themselves. And that was a good thing about this summit, is that the United States government didn't deal with the African nation in a support, you understand, in a support method. But it's about the African nations being independent nations, and we deal with each other on an equal level. And these African nations have the room for their economies to grow independently, and we interact, had this interrelation between the United States of America and each individual African nation, but also all these African nations together can be able to deal with the United States of America and also other nations around the world, and to deal with this issue about this recruitment, because that can be a problem. Because as you see, we got a war in Iraq again. Now you know that the United States has been to Iraq in the 1980s. That was a war, the first Gulf War. Then We had the Gulf War. After 9/11, there was another Gulf War. Now, here we go again. Now there's already been military airstrikes, humanitarian aid being dropped for the people. But the thing about it is that military action is already being taken by the United States. We've already been there. Now here we go again. Got to be there again. See, this is the thing about recruitment. See, when you have an El Shabaab, when you have a Boko Haram, see, these are lessons that have to be learned. How many times do you have to keep going to Iraq? How many times do you have to keep having military officers and military personnel in Afghanistan being murdered and killed and being injured in Afghanistan? See, there comes a time when you have to look at your policy, and you got to always go back to that phrase, options. We have other options. We don't have to just keep on having our military personnel being around the Afghanistanians. See, you have a two-star general that's been murdered. That's something that's unacceptable. And then you have other military personnel that got hurt. There needs to be a change in policy. It's unacceptable. And see, this is the reason why you had the USA Africa Summit, because it was unacceptable what was being done. So there had to be a change. And that's what needs to be, as you see, in Iraq. The policy gonna have to be looked at again. Here we go again. I'm not gonna spend all my time on that, but it was just so important that we had to understand that was very, very positive in the future of being a whole lot better because of that something. On my video last week, as you know, we've been having this discussion, these talks about traditional African beliefs, cultures, customs, the languages, philosophies, religions. And when you say that, you're referring to people who've been excuse me, you're referring to groups of people such as the Afro-Asiatics, and the Afro-Asiatics being the Cushitic, the Chadic, the Omatic, the Egyptian, the Semitic, and the Berber. And then you have your Nilo-Saharan peoples. I have to refer to my note because there's so many groups. Some of them I can know, Luo, the Nilo-Saharan Luo, the Choli, the Dinka and the North. Some of the groups I can remember. The Maasai. And then your Nubian, your let me make sure. Your Nilo-Saharan groups, your Luo, your Kanuri, your Sangay, your Teso, your Nubian, your Lubare, your Kalenjin, and then you have your Bango, your Dinka, a Chugly, Masai, and Gambe, your Nua, your Fur, your Tubu, and then you had your the group, then you had your other groups, peoples, your Niger Congo, A and B, with your Kordofanian languages. Then you had your Mandi, yeah, you know, your Mandi, which is, you know, include Bambara and Sonika, Soniki, and you had your Ajoy, which is your Ajoy and Defake, your Dogon, your Atlantic, which is which includes your Wolo and your Fulane. Then you had your Crew, which includes your BT and Yahweh and your D-Day. Then you had your Sinufo languages. Then you had your Gur languages. You had your Adawame languages. You had your Banji languages. You had your Kwe language, which is a Can. You had your Volta Niger languages, which is the West Benue, your Congo language, your GB languages, which includes your Iwi. Then you had your Yoruba and your Igbo. Then you had your East Benue, Congo, and you know, your Swahili, your Fang, your Congo, and your Zulu. And then you know there are many others that constitute the Bantu language. And then you had your Khoisan language, you know, the Khoi and the San. When you say Khoisan, you know there are two groups. And when the linguists classified this group of language, you know, there are people, the Khoi and the San. And some of the languages, I'm not going to try to even get into pronunciation, but on your own independent study, you know, the Khoi and the San, Khoisan language. Then you had your Austronesian language, which is the Malagasy, your Filipino, Malaysian, and Indonesian language. They migrated from, you know, the migration from that part of the world to Madagascar. Now, when you speaking about migration, I meant to mention this last, but you all familiar with the Mongolian migration. The Mongolian migration, the Mongols, you know, came all the way across from Mongolia all the way across West Africa, West Asia, and they came all the way across and got all, you know, there was a point where they stopped, but they went all the way over to Europe. Check the historical record that the Mongolians, and then they ruled the world for some, you know, that's what they call in the historical record when you talk about Genghis Khan and you know, that part of history and about the migration and how the Mongols came all the way across and went all the way to Europe. And but we're gonna continue the discussion because there's some things that need to be understood. trying to give on my last video, what I was trying to do is trying to put in the minds of the people that, for many, many years, it's been this Judeo-Christian, Islamic uh, conveyance that's been promoted by the governments around the world. And when you deal with colonialism in Africa, you have to understand that the people prior to this had a way of life. Even prior to Judaism, Christianity, and Islam. And that these people who live in Africa were not Jews, were not Christian, and were not Muslim, were not what people try to say things about the past. But research has shown, and that the Africans themselves, that they were not Jews, they were not Christian, they were not Muslim, but that it's referred to. You have to also understand when you say African traditional religion, that's something that also is debated, because you have to get into this, like what it's called. For some people, for example, when you read the Bible, you read the Old Testament, you don't see anywhere in the Old Testament except when they get to a certain point and it talks about the Jews being taken from Israel into captivity, and then you see the word Jew mentioned, and then you say, what is it called? And when you talk about the people, Adam and Eve, see, you say, what is it called? What you call it? What you call it? What Adam was doing, Eve was doing, what you call after the flood, Noah and his family, what you call it? You call that Judaism. See, so when you talk about African traditional religion, people say, there's another thing about it. You say African traditional religion, African traditional religions, and the reason why they say religions is referring to the fact that you have all these people who live in Africa, and all these people had a system. The languages, all these, they had a system, and that's what it's referring to. So they had to deal with, what is it called? Is it African traditional religion? African traditional religions. So when I was reading on my research, I didn't want to make the mistake of trying to talk about something myself. So I referred to some, there are many people who, my research also said this also, that when you talk about the study of African traditional religion, that's what the study of African traditional religion, there was a point that it started in the 20th century. I'm saying, see, this is what we have to remember. People been living this way of life since the beginning. So, but when the universities and college, that's what they're referring to, is when you study African traditional religion, the modern method of studying African traditional religions is a 20th century method of doing things. So that's what, when you do research there, you'll find that that's what many scholars would tell you, that prior to the 20th century, there was colonialism and things in nature. And then you have to also know the Judeo-Christian, Muslim, when it comes to African traditional religion, there's been many, many years of where African African traditional religion has not been taught and studied. And then you get to the point of the 20th century, the post-colonial study of African traditional religion, and that's what I want to make sure I started out when you talk about African traditional religion. You have to make sure that when people listen, you have to make sure you have your references and things in there, because people can get upset. People get angry because you don't know what you're talking about. And I'm not gonna say I know everything. Like I said, I had to do research. And then the research that I have, I share with others, and then they'll do the same thing. So that's what I would do. Like I said, and also I want to make sure that the author of the essay, what is African traditional religion, studies and comparative religion, uh, Dr. Joseph Omasadi Ovalelu, Dr. Joseph Omasadi Ovalelu. See, I refer to his work. And when we talk about traditional African traditional religion, and like I was reading, it said that from this essay that Dr. Ovalelu presented, is that it said that religion is a fundamental, perhaps the most important influence in the life of most Africans. He said, yet its essential principles are too often unknown to foreigners, who thus make themselves constantly liable to misunderstanding the African worldview and beliefs. He said, religion enters into every aspect of the life of the Africans, and it cannot be studied in isolation. He said, its study has to go hand in hand with the study of the people who practice the religion. He said, when we speak of African traditional religion, we mean the indigenous religious beliefs and practices of the African. It is the religion which resulted from the sustaining faith held by the forebearers of the present Africans, and which is being practiced today in various forms and various shades and intensities by a very large number of Africans, including individuals who claim to be Muslims or Christians. He said we need to explain the word tradition. Traditional. He said this word means indigenous, that which is aboriginal or fundamental or foundational, handed down from generation to generation, upheld and practiced by Africans today. This is a heritage from the past, but treated not as a thing of the past, but as that which connects the past with the present, and the present with eternity. This is not a fossil religion, a thing of the past, or a dead religion. It is a religion that is practiced by living men and women. It says, through modern changes, the traditional religion cannot remain intact, but is by no means extinct. The declared adherents of the indigenous religion are very conservative, resisting the influence of modernism heralded by the colonial era, including the introduction of Islam, Christianity, Western education, and improved medical facilities. They cherish their tradition. They worship with sincerity because their to them. They hold tenacity to their covenant that binds them together. It says we speak of religion in the singular. This is a deliberate. This is deliberate. It says we are not unconscious of the fact that Africa is a large continent with multitudes of nations who have complex cultures, innumerable languages, and myriads of dialects. But in spite of all these differences, there are many basic similarities in the religious systems. Everywhere there is the concept of God, called by different names. There is also the concept of divinities and of spirits, as well as beliefs in the ancestral culture. Every locality may or does not or does have its own local deities, its own festivals, its own name or names for the supreme being. But in essence, the pattern is the same. There is that noticeable Africanness in the whole pattern. Here we disagree with John and Beatty, who chooses to speak of the religion in the plural because there are about 1,000 African peoples, tribes, and each has its own religious systems. It says, peculiarities of the religion. It says that this is a religion that is based mainly on oral transmission. It is not written on paper, but in people's hearts, minds, oral history, rituals, shrines, and religious functions. It has no founders or reformers, like we're talking about the Buddha, Isaka, Christ, or Muhammad. It is not the religion of one hero. It has no missionaries or even the desire to propagate the religion or to proselytize. However, they adherents are loyal worshippers, and probably because of this, Africans who have their roots in the indigenous religion find it difficult to serve a connection with it. He said that that part of the essay, if you read on about the foreign theorists and investigators, it talks about how other people perceive African, the different, they would call savages and feudalism and juju, paganism and heathenism, animism, idolatry, and symbolic representation. Says things about and then misleading terms like primitive. It said that in his essay also discusses polytheism. It says in West Africa, said Arenda, men believe in great pantheons of gods which are as diverse as the gods of the Greeks or the Hindus. Many of these gods are the expression of the forces of nature. It said, which men fear or try to propitiate. It said these gods generally have their own temples and priests, and their worshippers cannot justly be called enemies, but polytheists, since they worship a variety of gods. Here, while Parmenides was trying to discourage the use of the term animism in connection with the religion of Africa, he created another problem by suggesting the term polytheism. We can understand what the problems are. In a proper polytheism, the gods are all of the same rank and file. The difference between that type of polytheism and the instruction of the African traditional religion is that in Africa, the supreme being is not of the rank and file of the divinities. The origin of the divinities can be traced. The divinities can be represented. They are limited in their power. They came into being by the power of the supreme being, who is unique, wholly other and faultless, and who owes his existence to no one. The Africans do not and cannot represent him in the form of an image, as they can do with the divinities. It said that Parmenides made this mistake because in his West African religion, he claimed that the supreme being, supreme God, or creator, is sometimes above the gods, sometimes first among equals. This is not correct. The Yoruba, for example, never ranked the supreme being. Olodumare with the divinities Orise. Neither do the Edo, confused Osanubuwe with the divinity Igbo. The truth of the matter is that Africans hold the supreme being as a venerable majesty who has several servants, the divinities, under him to carry out his desire. He is a class by himself. This is why it is not appropriate to describe the religion as polytheistic. Modified monotheism. Can we find a precise term for this religion, which believes in the supreme being under whom subordinate divinities serve his will? Present eminent African scholars like Professor E. Bologi Idao and Professor John Mbiti have emphasized the fact that the world of the Africans is a theocratic one, ruled and governed by the decree of the supreme being. In order to administer the world, however, the deity has brought into being divinities who are his ministers or functionaries. These divinities act like intermediaries between men and God. The supreme being is given different names by different groups of people. When we examine the names, we gain a greater insight into the people's concept of God, as they are descriptive of his character and attributes. For example, among the Yoruba, he is called Olodumare. By meaning and connotation, this name signifies that the supreme being is unique, that his majesty is superlative, that he is unchanging and ever reliable. He is also called owner of heaven, and Elide, the creator, by the same people. The Edo call him Osanubuwe, and this means God who is the source and sustainer of the world. The Igbo call him Chukwu, that is the great chief or the great source of light and of being. The new call him Soko, the great one, who dwells in heaven. And they also designate him Tiso, C, meaning the owner of us, the one to whom we belong. The Iwi speaking people speak of him as Nene, the Luku, Ancient of Days. And this suggests his eternity in God. He is called Anyame, the great and shining one who is high and above all. In very precise language says Professor Mbiti. This Bakongo describes the self-existence of God when they say that he is made by no other, no one beyond him is. We see then that the greatest emphasis on the supreme being, the ultimacy, wherever you go in Africa is according to God. This is why we are convinced that the religion is monotheistic, but the monotheism may need some modification. Hence, Professor Balaji Adonu has suggested diffused monotheism because here we have a monotheism in which there exist other powers which derive from deity, such being an authority that they can be treated for practical purpose, almost as ends in themselves. Say in the conclusion, in Dr. Ewololu's essay says that African traditional religion cannot easily be studied by non-Africans. The best interpreter of African religion is the African with a disciplined mind and the requisite technical tools. And we agree with Professor Aduwu that the purpose of the study should be to discover what Africans actually know, actually believe, and actually think about deity and the supersensible world. There is a whole world of difference between this and what any investigators at home or from abroad prescribe through preconceived notions that Africans should know. Believe and think it is also to find out how their beliefs have inspired their worldviews and molded cultures in general. And I'm going to say that Dr. Johnson Omasadi Ewolelu has another book that is written. There's an essay I just read, but there is a book that I would like to refer you to. It's and the title is Yoruba Beliefs and Sacrificial Rites. Yoruba Beliefs and Sacrificial Rites. And I would like to refer you to some more reading that I found related to the same subject, African traditional religion. Now I found this online on a free online library, and I downloaded it. read when I printed it off, it didn't print the whole, but I'm the author. Okay, this is I found it on the free online library, and it and this is the reason for studying African religion in post-colonial Africa, and the author is Julius Mutungi Kathongo. Julius Mutungi, I spell his name M-U, and the first name is Julius, Julius. Middle name Mutungi, Mutugi, Kathongo, Gathogo, in the publication Currents in Theology and Mission. And the title again is The Reason for Studying African Religion in Post-Colonial Africa. It's on a free online library. And this is another that I had printed off. This is the author of this work here. It's from the England Journal of Religious Study. And the title of this work is The Study of African Traditional Religion and Its Challenges in Contemporary Times. And the author is Rotimi, I spell it Rotimi, Williams, Williams, Omotoyi, Omotoye. It's from the Department of Religions, the University of Ilorin in Nigeria. And again, the title of this work is The Study of African Traditional Religion and Its Challenges in Contemporary Times. And I have another work that I had printed off. It's Emergent Key Issues. Emergent Key Issues in the Study of African Traditional Religions. And the author is Christopher Ijazu. Christopher Ijazu. His last name spelled Ejizu. His middle initial is the letter I. His first name is Christopher. The middle initial is I. Last name Ejizu. Ejizu. It says in the title again, Emergent Key Issues in the Study of African Traditional Religion. And this is a book I'm going to purchase. I didn't, but I'm going to recommend that you buy this book also. African Traditions in the Study of Religion in Africa. Now, if I'm not mistaken, now there are 3 doctors, and also Dr. Amo Lelu has worked on this book on African Traditions in the Study of Religion in Africa. And there are 3 doctors. Dr. Ezra Chatendo, last name Chitando, Chitando. And next doctor is Dr. Afe, Afe. Last name Adogami, Adogami. That's spelled Adogame. And the last doctor, Dr. Olaji BT. First name Olaji, Bolaji. Last name BT, spelled Beteye. And as you know, Dr. Joseph Omosabi Ewolelu uh, worked on this book. Is where the title of this book is African Traditions in the Study of Religion in Africa. And so now I'm going further. I'm already at an hour on this video. And again, I want to say thank to all my fans, my supporters, for your continued support, for your continued encouragement support. And I am working on my, continue to work on my entertainment, my music. And matter of fact, this week, now that I'm out of school, I had some time to work on my music. And that's what I'm going to continue to do. Now I got a new work schedule. And now, I think I got a little time before the fall semester. So I'm definitely working on my music. But until my next video, again, my name is Eric D. Johnson, also known as BrightShine. I live here in the city of Memphis, the state of Tennessee, in the county of Shelby. I wish each one of you the best. Until my next video, take care of yourself.